Good afternoon to you. It is 4:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up today, Mike Gonzalez is a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He'll join us at 5:30 to talk about all these college students and their administrators who have decided to side with terrorism. How did that happen? Mike is such a great expert on that subject and so much more. We'll chat with him at 5:30. And we'll talk to you at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. This weekend in San Diego, California, the FBI director, Christopher Wray, said that his agency is on guard now for lone wolf attacks by people who support Hamas's attack on Israel. Listen to Wray's remarks.
In this heightened environment, there's no question we're seeing an increase in reported threats, and we've got to be on the lookout, especially for lone actors who may take inspiration from recent events to commit violence of their own. So I'd encourage you to stay vigilant, because as the first line of defense, protecting our communities, you're often the first to see the signs that someone may be mobilizing to violence. I'd also ask you to continue sharing any intelligence or observations you may have. And on our end, we're committed to doing the same so that together we can safeguard our communities.
So perhaps the FBI will take a break from persecuting the left's political opponents and instead focus on threats to the country. Where might they start their examinations, their investigations? Well, Gabriel Noronha has been tracking this. He's an executive director for Polaris National Security and a former State Department advisor on Iran. Gabriel, good to have you with us.
Thanks. Great to be here.
You tweeted, I thought, a very interesting and scary thread this weekend about what is going on in places like Houston, Texas. And it involves something called an Islamic Education Center. But you took great pains to point out this is not about Islam. It's not about Muslims broadly. It's about a specific kind of propaganda training program that is present in a number of cities in the country. Tell us what you found.
Yes, absolutely. So the Islamic Republic of Iran, for the last really 40 years, has operated these centers across the United States. And it's all about trying to get Muslims to swear allegiance to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Again, this has nothing to do with Islam. They're trying to supplant it with this national loyalty. And one thing we saw at this Islamic Education Center in Houston is hundreds of children singing a song, pledging their loyalty to Qasem Soleimani, the former IRGC general, swearing loyalty to Khamenei, and promising to be their soldiers and martyrs.
Yes. In fact, I'm sorry. You said it was extremely concerning. I totally agree. And in fact, let me play the audio of what you just referenced. Here are hundreds of children, again, singing to Soleimani and Khamenei.
I will be your soldier, I'll be your supporter, be your biggest lover. I promise to become like Mehdi, is but of my own gate.
I will be your soldier, I will be your martyr. These are children in Houston, Texas, singing this?
Yes. And what's concerning is you have similar centers like this in Potomac, Maryland, in Manassas, Virginia, in Los Angeles, and maybe many other cities across America. This is just the one that posted some of these videos to their YouTube and Facebook channel. What's really concerning to me is also you look at the line of funding for these organizations, and it goes straight back to the Iranian regime. The Department of Justice about 15 years ago started trying to confiscate some of their property, some of their assets. But it's been a long time since we've actually seen law enforcement authorities taking this problem seriously, I think.
There's another video you shared in this thread this weekend, a little easier to hear, but equally as scary. This is a boy reading out pro-Iranian propaganda to an audience and condemning the very existence of Israel. Again, this is all happening in Houston, Texas.
May he sever the hands of those who wish to create dissension among the Muslim countries. Number 3, All must know that the superpowers' aim in creating Israel does not end the occupation of Palestine. They plan, heaven forbid, to extend the faith of Palestine to all Arab countries. Number 4. Do not support Israel, this enemy of Islam and Arabs, for this listless viper will have no mercy on you, young or old, if it gets within your reach.
So the boy's saying that apparently Israel in this frame is going to conquer the entire Arab world. I've never heard Israel even suggest something like that.
It's absurd, but this is classic Iranian propaganda. They're trying, what they do is they call Israel the little Satan, and then they call America the great Satan, which tells you again their priorities here. Israel just happens to be closer and within their grasp. Again, this is not. Again, I've gone to churches. This is not kind of readings you hear at churches. They also had a Boy Scout troop. I was an Eagle Scout. This is not the kind of thing that Scouts address. They don't talk about geopolitical issues, and they certainly don't talk about Jews in Israel being vipers. So again, it's more of a political project intended to indoctrinate the kids.
Yes.
But again, the problem is, what are the adults? If this is the kids, what are the adults doing and saying, which is indoctrinating these things?
Yeah. And, it's weird that they have a Boy Scout troop because isn't it a part of the Scout oath that you pledge your duty to your God and country? Which country are they pledging their duty to?
Well, if you listen to the videos, you see that they're pledging allegiance to Iran and the Iranian government. I don't know why the Boy Scouts allowed them in. Presumably they just weren't paying attention and didn't do the research here.
They let girls in now, so I don't think they really have rules anymore. Let's talk about Iran and its influence here in this war on Israel. There's still, even to this day, we're now over a week out, all of this hemming and hawing over whether Iran even played a role in the attack onto Israel, which I've been watching this and going, that's ridiculous. They fund all of the relevant terror groups that are now launching missiles and attacking Israel. What do you make of that?
Exactly. So it used to be that Iran supported Hamas with about $100 million a year. In the past year, because U.S. sanctions have been so lax, they actually increased that funding to $350 million per year. That's 93% of Hamas's budget. So they are responsible for every single thing that happens. Again, if you or I funded 93% of any organization's budget, you would know exactly what it's going to,
for sure,
and you'd be fully supportive of it. So yeah, the notion that they're not responsible is ridiculous. The question of did they plan, execute, and sign off on that, that's unclear from the intelligence we have. Personally, I think they did.
Okay, but they also have a controlling stake over what happens next, don't they? So I've seen the Iranians now signaling today that Hamas might be open to releasing the hostages, numbered at, according to the Israelis, 199 hostages, in exchange for Israel bringing an end to firing upon Gaza. Iran kind of in the driver's seat here, no?
That's exactly the Iranian MO for hostage diplomacy. And look, Hamas learned all of this from Iran. Iran has been taking hostages since their very founding. What we saw from Iran when I was negotiating hostage releases with them, they would say, we'll release all our hostages. You just have to release all your Iranian prisoners. Those prisoners would include mass murderers, terrorists, nuclear proliferators. And so there's no way we could do it. But what they do is they're really clever. They go to the media and they say, we're willing to release all hostages. That's propaganda. In this case, they're saying we will release them if Israel releases all 6,000 Hamas prisoners, who are all, again, terrorists. My view is we should have three principles here. No money for those hostages, no policy concessions for those hostages, and to the extent possible, we shouldn't allow any terrorists to be able to go back to the battlefield.
Do you believe that Hamas's decision to, I think you basically said as much just a moment ago, but do you think that their decision to take hostages here was motivated by Joe Biden's recent decision to not only release Iranian prisoners, but also to give the Iranians $6 billion? I think the clear signal is that the West does respond to hostage-taking, and Joe Biden is evidence of it.
So I don't normally like to speculate, and in this case, I don't have to speculate because Hamas's political representative went on TV, in Russian TV on Sunday, and said, "Hey, look, the United States made an agreement with Iran on hostages. They'll make an agreement with us." And so you have it straight from their mouth saying they believe they can get the deal out of this.
It's just wild to see. The Hamas took all these hostages. We mentioned the number 199. Israel is trying to figure out how to conduct this war against Hamas as they fight back in reaction to the terrorist attack. How difficult is it to strike Hamas while simultaneously trying to keep your own people safe?
It's extremely hard. As most people know, Hamas has created terror tunnels all underground under Gaza City, other parts of the Gaza Strip, and they're going to be likely booby-trapped either with explosives or they'll be used, they'll put the hostages to military targets. They're basically inviting and trying to get them killed because they want to say, hey, look, you struck this hospital and now an Israeli citizen is dead. Of course, those hospitals are actually where they put the Hamas headquarters in. It is going to be extremely difficult for Israeli and U.S. commandos or anyone in the national security apparatus to get any of those hostages alive. I'm a big critic of the Biden administration. I will be very clear here. I will not blame them. I don't think any of us should blame them if these hostages are killed. The moment Hamas took them, they were willing to execute them, and they said that they would try to do so on live TV. It's really sad, but this is unfortunately where we are.
It is deeply unfortunate. So Israel's been giving the people of Gaza a warning now for over a week that they've got all sorts of incoming, and they'd like the civilians to clear the area as they conduct this counterstrike on Hamas. That said, everyone seems to be shutting down their borders here. Hamas is urging people to stay in place to ignore the Israeli warnings. Egypt is not taking anybody in from Gaza. What is going on here? Why isn't the Arab world more accommodating to the residents of Gaza if they want to protect them?
I mean, my view is countries like Qatar and Turkey should take in these refugees themselves. That's my view. Their position, however, is, look, this is their valid land. They should be able to stay there. That's fair, but you can't have them in active combat zones. One analogy I like to look at is what happened when in 2015 when we were trying to take out ISIS from the Iraqi city of Mosul. The counter-ISIS coalition was there for over 100 days trying to do counterterrorism operations to extract ISIS from the city. Look, at the end of the day, most of Mosul was destroyed. There were enormous civilian casualties. And the international community did everything it could to solve the problem, but we resolved we would not allow ISIS to threaten the international community and continue its mayhem across the region. You never saw European countries, you never saw the UN call for de-escalation, you never saw them condemn the counter-ISIS coalition. But what we're seeing here with Israel is before they've even gotten in, you're seeing these cries of outrage. It's a completely double standard when it comes to Israel and it comes to those countries trying to destroy ISIS.
It's too bad. It's too insane. I'm glad you're able to track all of it. Gabriel Noronha over at Polaris National Security. Thank you very much for your time today, sir.
May he sever the hands of those who wish to create dissension among the Muslim countries. Number 3. All must know that the superpowers' aim in creating Israel does not end the occupation of Palestine.
Remember, that's a child in Houston, Texas, as Gabriel Noronha just highlighted, reading pro-Iranian propaganda to an audience. And this is apparently happening all over the country. They just happen to post some of this to YouTube. Just amazing that that's happening. Robert's in La Plata, Maryland now on line 1. Robert, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, good afternoon, Vince. How are you?
I'm good, sir. You heard that video. What'd you think?
It struck a chord because, as I spoke to your other gentleman earlier, I worked in Cuba somewhere for a while, and we learned through certain training that we were given that young boys like that are indoctrinated into the radical extremist part of Islam, even though they're young, because of the way that they are made to believe that everybody outside of certain parts of that religion are infidels and need to be killed and wiped off the planet. And especially with like Israel being, who they are and the wars that they've had over time, they're made to look like Israel's going to start annihilating all the Muslim countries around the area, and which is going to start just an onslaught of negativity, I guess you'd say. I'm trying to think of the proper terms.
Yeah.
The outlook of Israel and everybody who supports them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people around here have forgotten what happened after 9/11. After things were brought to light and the truth was made known about who brought down the two towers and stuff like that. 20-some years goes by and a whole different generation is taken over and grown up, and they know absolutely nothing of what's going on. And they were never taught anything about what happened back then. So now they're bleeding hearts and feeling sorry for people who think that they are the ones that are being oppressed when actually they're not. People fear them to go kill somebody who they believe doesn't support their faith or their religion, and think that everybody else needs to die and that they should be on top of on top of the world.
Robert, you said you've seen this before. Do you get the sense that it's possible for someone to be broken of the brainwashing they were subjected to as a boy?
I don't know. I remember when females would from here would go overseas and support the cause over there for some odd reason.
Yes.
And they would end up marrying.
I know what he's saying.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Robert, you're breaking up, but I know what you're saying. You got some of these American women sometimes. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Women convince themselves they can fix the bad boy sometimes, and that bad boy includes a terrorist overseas. There's some craziness out there. That's for sure.
Well, the brainwashing is absolutely true, and that's a big part of the problem that not a lot of people are aware of. Once you're indoctrinated into that and you're made to believe that somebody's as evil as what somebody else about them, then you, of course, want to handle the situation and get rid of them.
Yeah. All right, Robert, thank you. Yeah, no, it's a good perspective, and it's so crazy just listening to this young man up there saying that Israel's trying to destroy the Arab world. Meanwhile, Israel is about as accommodating as any. It's the most tolerant country in the whole Middle East. 20% of the population is Arab in Israel. 20%. How many Jews live in Gaza now? Well, none now, unless they're a hostage, which is the current situation. It's 4:30. Hey, good afternoon to you. 4:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Mike Gonzalez, the great Mike Gonzalez, senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation, will talk to us about all of these crazy university students. They're educated in something. They support terrorism now. It's amazing. He'll explain why. He's been tracking this phenomenon for a while. And we'll talk to you at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. A couple of things to tell you about. One of them, I was talking about the speaker race a little bit earlier. Breitbart has a report up right now that says that Jim Jordan is now down into the single digits that he needs to flip in order to become the speaker. So that's a big deal. If they actually can achieve that, then we should see Jim Jordan become the next Speaker of the House sometime this week. House Republicans have rallied behind House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan. Wendell Hilsabo reports for Breitbart for House Speaker, as at least 132 have publicly announced support for the Ohio congressman to claim the gavel. The number of lawmakers supporting Jordan is likely more than the number who publicly voiced support. Jordan won the conference nomination Friday with 124 votes, defeating Representative Austin Scott in a closed-door internal party vote. He then earned 152 votes on the second ballot when members were asked if they would support him on the House floor. After the vote, lawmakers broke for the weekend with little direction of what would occur next. Jordan then earned the support Monday, that's today, of former opposition ringleader Representative Mike Rogers, chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, creating a path to the gavel. Jordan needs a total of 217 votes on the House floor. They intend for the House floor vote tomorrow. That's when the vote's set to take place. So Jim Jordan could become Speaker, and on net, I think that'll be good for America if that does occur. So he needs 217, and at the moment, 132 have publicly committed to all of this. That is what's going on in that race. Although Mike Rogers, what a weird sequence of events over the weekend. Rogers had indicated that he wanted to work with Hakeem Jeffries in order to figure out a way to get Democrats to support whatever he was up to. Isn't that weird? Politico it's not that weird, actually. That's the way Washington operates. But Democrats were plotting this power grab. Politico had a report that Jeffries was in, quote, informal discussions on the speakership mess. You idiots. Why would you give Hakeem Jeffries a controlling stake in the speaker fight? Mike Rogers was flirting with them. Bloomberg had the headline, Top House Republican wants help from Democrats to pick a speaker, that is. Rogers suggested Republicans might have to cut a deal with Democrats and called on Jeffries to spell out what concessions he would require to help the GOP elect a speaker. Quote, they put us in this ditch along with 8 traitors, the Alabama Republican said, referring to hardline GOP dissidents who toppled Speaker Kevin McCarthy last week. Quote, we're still the majority party. We're willing to work with them, but they got to tell us what they need. That's a terrible idea. I'm glad he's backed away from that, hopefully. I hope there's nothing going on secretly behind the scenes that has any Democrat involvement. But you don't need them. You got enough Republican votes. Just rally behind Jim Jordan already. Please get this over with. Speaking of things that people should vote for, if you live in Virginia, should vote. Early voting is going on right now. And Democrats are angry at their own party and or apathetic right now. Take advantage of that, please. And get yourself and everyone you know to the polls to vote. I'll keep reminding you in case you forget. But now's the time. I won't have to remind you if you do it. You can tune that part out when I say it again. But early voting is underway in Virginia. Let's get it done. And let's improve the Commonwealth. Wouldn't that be nice? I think that'd be a good idea. Speaking of the election, we also have some election interference updates for you. An Obama-appointed Judge Chutkan, we're going to be hearing a lot of that name, aren't we? Has ordered Donald Trump to remain silent on all of the attacks on Donald Trump related to this federal election case brought by Jack Smith, the special counsel. New York Times, a judge has imposed a limited gag order on former President Donald J. Trump on Monday, restricting Mr. Trump from making public statements attacking the witnesses, prosecutors, or court staff involved in the federal criminal case in which he stands accused of conspiring to overturn the 2020 election. Remember, this is the Jack Smith indictment that went after Trump for all sorts of things he said as president of the United States. All sorts of free speech things. Jack Smith is indicting him over his words. And now they're saying he's not allowed to use words to discuss the witnesses to the case, the prosecutors in the case, the ones who are interfering in the election, or the court staff. Does that mean the judge? Does that mean Judge Chutkan, he's not allowed to talk about how unfairly he's being treated? Mr. Trump's freedom of speech rights do not permit him, quote, to launch a pre-trial smear campaign, end quote, against those people, said the judge, Tanya S. Chutkan. No other defendant will be allowed to do so. I'm not going to allow it in this case, said Tanya, the Obama-appointed judge. But the order left Mr. Trump free as he pursues his presidential campaign to continue disparaging the Justice Department, President Biden, and even to assert that he believed his prosecution was politically motivated. Judge Chutkan also apparently left Mr. Trump free to attack her, says the Times. We'll see. If she's forbidding him from attacking court staff and attacking, again, when Trump is going after the people who are going after him, he's really defending, isn't he? Rather than attacking. She also addressed a particularly thorny question involving Vice President Mike Pence, who is both a witness and his rival for the 2024 Republican nomination. She said Mr. Trump could go after him as long as it did not concern Mr. Pence's role in the events at the heart of the case. What? So he can't talk about the events around January 6th at all? as it relates to Mike Pence. What kind of campaign is this? One where he can't use his First Amendment right to free speech? The judge did not immediately address how she will enforce this gag order. She merely said she would assess any consequences for Mr. Trump if and when he violates it. So there you go. She says, don't worry, I'll come up with something. We'll figure out a way to punish you. No dessert for a week. Trump's team has responded, quote, today's decision is an absolute abomination and another partisan knife stuck in the heart of our democracy by crooked Joe Biden, who was granted the right to muzzle his political opponent, the leading candidate for the presidency in 2024, and the most popular political leader in America, President Donald J. Trump. President Trump will continue to fight for our Constitution, the American people's right to support him, and to keep our country free of the chains of weaponized and targeted law enforcement, the Trump campaign said in their statement. The inimitable Julie Kelly was in the courtroom today, and ahead of this decision, she was lamenting the state of our democracy right now, the state of our republic. She said, I've been in the courtroom where electronics are not permitted. Today is an historic day in political jurisprudence. An activist, radical, Democrat judge with open hostility to Trump and his lawyers prepared to ban the speech of a presidential candidate during an election. It's unfathomable that this is happening in America, but it is. Jack Smith's team will likely get a wide-ranging gag order preventing Trump and others from using, quote, disparaging language against potential witnesses in this case, which includes dozens of people. Judge Chutkan and the DOJ argue that Trump's speech could either influence the jury pool, LOL, she writes, intimidate witnesses, provoke violence, or all of the above. Chutkan is a sneering, preening activist on the bench, says Julie. She often threw out laugh lines during the court proceedings today. She would throw out laugh lines at Trump's expense, to which the courtroom gallery responded as she wanted. A bunch of chuckling hyenas. Oh, you're so funny, Judge Chutkan. They're laughing as she's cracking jokes about Donald Trump, the leading candidate for president of the United States. Oh, we're going to silence him now. There was a whole debate as to the appropriateness of Trump saying, quote, crooked Joe Biden. They literally debated whether or not he can refer to Joe Biden as crooked. The American public, by the way, does think he's very crooked. There's a poll out on that. 2/3 of the public thinks that Joe Biden is hopelessly corrupt. Jack Smith wants to not just silence Trump, he wants penalties for violations of the gag order, including fines or home detention. If Chutkan approves most of the DOJ's gag order, it will apply to Trump, his lawyers, his campaign associates. This is mind-blowing to see happen in real time. I've seen a lot of crazy things in this courthouse related to Trump and January 6th, but this takes the cake, she wrote. I was reading through the Trump team's legal filing they put in a couple days ago as they were arguing all of this, that, you know, Trump should be allowed to speak during the campaign. You know, if he's running a presidential campaign, he should be allowed to say things, including, my opponent's bad, I'm good, they shouldn't prosecute me, it's a political interference. You know, just stating the obvious. He should be allowed to do all of this. The prosecution seeks, this is the filing. Listen, I'm going to quote some of this because it's fantastic. It's an excellent filing, and the judge did not heed it. The prosecution seeks to unconstitutionally silence President Trump's, but not President Biden's, political speech on pain of contempt. In support, the prosecution presents nothing but pretexts, claiming that the court must muzzle President Trump to ensure that, one, the prosecution, the court, and the witnesses are not intimidated by political criticism, and two, that the District of Columbia citizenry, who voted by a margin of around 95% for Biden in the 2020 election, do not magically transform and become biased in President Trump's favor. So Trump's lawyers are basically like, really? You don't want to taint the jury pool with positive Trump sentiment? The jury pool is Washington, D.C. 95% for Biden. So you really think at this late date that all of a sudden Trump going out and going, Biden's wrongly attacking me, that the whole D.C. jury pool is going to be pro-Trump at the end of this? Oh, it's wild. The prosecution does not present one shred of evidence to demonstrate either of these claims, let alone to establish, as it must, a clear and present danger to the administration of justice. Neither the prosecution nor the court are reluctant to proceed with this case, and none of the public figures the prosecution references in its motion have refused to participate either. Just the opposite. These individuals appear to relish the notoriety that they've gained through their proximity to President Trump, variously writing books about their experiences, appearing for interviews with national media, and even running for president in their own right. Yeah, that's Mike Pence. Mike Pence is running for president. Nobody's intimidated. Nobody. How could they be? What would they be intimidated of? Trump said something mean about them on a rally stage? How are they intimidated by that? It's not like Trump controls the Justice Department. It's not like Trump is sending the FBI to raid people's homes. It's not like Trump is placing pro-lifers under arrest. It's not like Trump is targeting parents across the country for speaking up at school board meetings. It's not like Trump is targeting Catholics for holding Latin masses. It's not like Trump is locking up January 6th defendants and throwing away the key, putting them in solitary confinement. It's not like Trump is arresting his political opponent and dropping 96, what is it now? Different felony charges on the guy. It's not like Trump is doing that. What would they be intimidated by? If anything, it's Trump and the people around him who have a case to make. That the Justice Department is out of control. That there need to be constraints on them. You know, including corrupting jury pools. Who has more reach and influence right now? Is it Donald Trump on Truth Social? Or is it Joe Biden through every single leftist media outlet on the planet? Which one would you say it is? So crazy. Yeah, so all these people have written books. They appear for interviews. They talk about Trump. Trump. Nobody's scared. Worse, the proposed gag order lacks any semblance of narrow tailoring, sweeping in, for instance, all disparaging statements about any potential witness, regardless of subject, and it includes individuals who are actively waging political campaigns against President Trump. And it does so in a unilateral way, preventing President Trump from defending himself in the political arena while giving President Biden and his surrogates, including those in the corporate media, as I just said, free rein to say whatever they want, all for no legitimate reason. The purported goals of the proposed gag order would not be served by the order itself. The media would still feature this case, and the prosecutors, the court, and potential witnesses, again, yet unidentified by the prosecutors, would still be criticized in the public arena. The prosecution, therefore, cannot come close to eliminating the exact source of the evil it purportedly seeks to remedy. At bottom, the proposed gag order is nothing more than an obvious attempt by the Biden administration to unlawfully silence its most prominent political opponent, who has now taken a commanding lead in the polls. Indeed, this very motion comes on the heels of adverse polling for President Biden. His administration's plan is quite simple. Unleash a 45-page speaking indictment, discuss and leak its talking points in the press, and then cynically attempt to invoke the court's authority to prevent President Trump and those acting on his behalf from presenting his side of the story to the American people during a political campaign. This desperate effort at censorship is unconstitutional on its face. They're right. They're right. And the summary there at the end is perfect. That's exactly what's happening. It's election interference using the tools of government in a tyrannical way. They accuse him of all sorts of nonsense and then say you're not allowed to defend yourself. You're not allowed to point to the underlying motives of the people who are attacking you. You're not allowed to tell an audience that this person and this person and this person are leading a hit job on me. You're not allowed to say it, even if it's unimpeachably true, as it is in this case. And so they want to tie Trump's hands behind his back. And Judge Chutkan is going along with it. You know, today, a lot of headlines, it's narrowly tailored. So there are categories that he's not allowed to say. There are any number of things he's not allowed to say now, according to this judge, or else he will be punished in some unspecified way. And don't you know that she is salivating to hurt him? She really wants him to violate this. She'll come up with something cruel for him. And the left is salivating too. It's not about a jury of his peers. He doesn't even get to be in front of a jury of his peers. The D.C. jury is already biased against him, and it'll only grow increasingly more so because Donald Trump is silenced from being able to defend himself while the leftist corporate media has both hands free and is just pummeling. All right, let's check in on line one. Mike from Washington, D.C. Mike, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, how you doing?
Good, Mike. What's up?
I get the Washington Post delivered to my house, okay? I think it's important to read the other side, and plus
Sure.
I live in D.C.
Yeah.
There were 2 columns yesterday. There was an article today. Every single person who can be part of the jury pool most likely gets the Washington Post for free at a federal building or delivered to them at their house for $17 a year.
Mm-hmm.
The judge gets the newspaper for free at the federal district court. Okay? So the argument that he is going to taint the jury pool is comical, disingenuous, and fraudulent. And he should file a criminal complaint against her for even making it.
Yeah, the left really does control all of the means of communication around here for the most part, with rare exceptions, this humble station being among them. But there's no doubt, this idea that, oh, you're going to corrupt the jury pool. I'm sorry, baby. This jury pool, she's corrupted. I hate to tell you. Coming up, Mike Gonzalez will be with us. We'll talk about future jurors coming out of America's college campuses who support terrorists. Not exactly a jury of our peers, are they?